Welcome back to the Lowe Down, the podcast that takes you inside every battle, strategy, and shocking moment from Fox's The Floor. I'm Zack, aka Trees, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Devin B. Road Trip, here ready to dive into the intense action of episode 5.
And it's your man, Scary Terry. This week, we've got some major shakeups to discuss, including a shocking elimination.
That's right, Terry. But first, we have a special guest joining us today, Lillie, who faced off against Toni in episode 4, Fantasy Films Duel. Welcome to the Lowe Down, Lillie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share my experience and insights with all of you.
Yeah. Episode 5, Lillie got to see it right after episode 4, so she has some amazing insight because her cousin was on episode 5. And Zack, we have some things to talk about as well.
We do.
But before we do, let's break down the episode by the numbers. I have my notebook ready this week. All right, episode 5, 8 duel day. The greatest deficit, 38 seconds. We know what happened there. Sorry, my man. R.I.P. Wyatt. I know he's still around, but it was a tough go. The shortest, 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The greatest amount of correct answers, 18. It was 18 to 17. I want to say this was a night where experts stayed in control of their categories throughout, just barely, because somebody went on a little bit of a run. An underdog that we did not see coming at all went on a bit of a, I couldn't think of a horse pun, but you know the deal. And I also want to say this is one of the nights where people won, even though they passed more than their challenger. So, highlights, lowlights, what did we think about last night's episode? Lillie, I'm going to let you be our guest. We talk to each other all the time. What you think about last night's episode?
Oh man, I was on the edge of my seat, and because I had no idea what actually went down because I had already been eliminated. So to see how everything played out, it was very shocking because, I did not expect some of the people who were up there to know as much as they actually did.
And so I got a question. Toni took you
Yeah.
out. Did you think Toni was going to be as big of a threat as she's kind of turning out to be? Because she's kind of looking like a boss, a little bit of a boss right now.
I did not think she would turn out to be as big of a threat as she is. We actually had a lot of conversation out on the floor how we weren't going to duel against each other. So our duel actually came as a huge shock for me that a lot of people don't know. But at the end of the day, it's a competition. And maybe I was there too much for friendship.
Well, that seems to be a theme amongst all of us about friendship. And for some of us, friendship worked. For some of us, friendship not so much.
I guess some of us are honest, and Toni, who we had on the show last week, isn't. Like she said, we're not going to duel each other. She left that out last week. Lillie, she left that part out. I'm a little upset that she didn't say, well, by the way, I told Lillie I wasn't going to challenge her just to keep her off guard, and then once I got ran, it was on. Like, no, that would have been good talk.
Yeah, because I straight up told her, I was like, I'm not going to go against you. And then if you watch the episode again, like when she won in math, like I was jumping, screaming, excited. I had no idea.
Woo!
She was for me. No idea.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You say you were floored, huh?
Yeah, floored.
Yes,
Good one.
I was floored.
Gosh.
So let's go through the episode. Toni decides to stay to get the time boost. And I think this really was when strategy was coming out. She stayed, and then let me pull out the notebook.
I've actually got you right here.
Oh,
Devin.
yeah. Yeah, you lived it.
For you. That episode is etched in my memory for some odd reason. But recap of the episode as I saw it. So I say, if you haven't seen it, here's what you missed. Toni took out Nick by knowing TV bombs and ended up with a time boost in a comfortable category. Then we saw a dynamic duo compete, but Hank went out like a rock star. Then Barbie challenged Met Gala, or just famous people wearing silly outfits, but handed over her Latin musicians to the seemingly confident queen in a jumpsuit, who retook the floor. Zack shit the bed with Derby, but he was just a speed bump as Megan just really wanted to take out Steve, but he doesn't know what Crystal is, so she took him out as well. Then she figured she'd grab up a time boost by taking out America's sweetheart Julian, but just by the skin of her teeth. Then Wyatt challenged the only person he could in an ocean of Brian and did what he does best, lasted about 8 seconds. Sorry, buddy, I'd have failed that at that one too. Leaving Brian to win again and remain the Goliath of the floor, but with a more approachable rodeo category. Highlight of the night for me was definitely Wyatt taking directors away from the actor. We appreciate your sacrifice.
Yes, we do. We do appreciate it. And so before I get to our hosts, I know that it was an order. How did you happen to be on the floor with your cousin, Julian? Like, it's so many family relationships this year that were on there. How did you end up with him on the floor, and how did you feel watching him duel?
Yes. So I had actually applied first, and me and him, we grew up, super close, playing games together and all of that. Like, that's my movie buddy, all of that. So I applied, and I was so shocked by how quick the process was going. I was like, hey, you should apply too. So then he applied. And something that's interesting is I actually initially was selected for season 2. And then I initially was selected for season 2. And then I asked if I could switch to season 3.
Nice.
So we ended up on the same season together, which was amazing. Yeah, and seeing the episode last night, he told me what happened, but to see it, it was like, oh crap, like you really did have her. Like you really had her. It was so close. And it was crazy because when I was in the airport headed home, he called me and said that he was on his way to the exit hotel. And I was like, wait, what? You got eliminated? Because after I got eliminated, he was so pumped up, like he was out for blood. He was like, no, I'm gonna take them all out. I'm going over there to get Brian. Like he had a whole strategy. But then when he called, he was like, yeah, I'm headed to the X hotel. I was like, what? And then he had let me know that, Zack had got out. I was like, what? Like, what happened? And then, it was rodeo. Yeah. It was so unexpected.
Man, that goes to show like how many good players were on season 3. Like how many people thought like going in there, and I'll tell you one other one when we talk about the night. There was one other one, and when you watch back, he was pretty confident he was going to win last night, and that didn't happen either. He got bit by the same bug that others got bit by, and but there was like I think there was a lot of shock in that episode of people that really were either well studied, but that goes to show you how strong our season was. So, Lillie, when you said you switched from season 2 to season 3, I don't know if you've watched this podcast, but in episode 0, Devin brought it up that he thought all of us would have won season 2. So we could have switched with you, went to season 2, had a whole bunch of money, and then came back and bet on this podcast. But would you trade $250,000 if you wouldn't have been friends with Zack and Devin? My answer is 1,000%. I would have. I would have watched your podcast. I've done this, and I wouldn't have known how awesome they were, but I'd have had money. But instead, here I am, stuck every week after week with trees and road trips. So, Lillie, that's awesome that you said that. That's a funny story where he's like, I got a strategy. I'm going after Brian. I'm at the exit hotel, like all in a row. So, like that's an awesome story. I appreciate that.
Lillie, you got to think about it like this, because I know Julian had to feel some kind of way. 2 seconds. 2 seconds was what he lost by. And it wasn't like she decimated him or anything like that. And so I bet he's probably kicking himself every day thinking about, if I just answered this one other one a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, it would have been a totally different scenario.
But yes, he has a lot of regret.
Well, he shouldn't have regret at all because I mean, like I said, everyone out there was dueling, doing great things. So, no spot for regret there. I think we all, if you didn't get home and think on that flight home, man, if I would have just done this, like hindsight, they always say 2020, but I think that's why everyone would be like, if I could go back and play again, knowing now what I knew then, strike that, reverse it, whatever you say. Willy Wonka said, strike
I,
it, reverse it.
I was doing I was doing a lot of thinking about that actually. Like,
Yeah.
what if they had like a repeat of a season, mix up the players on the field, and now like knowing what you know now about how they did in their duel, but you mix up the floor and their spots and
And you
replay.
know everybody. Like we've stayed in contact. Like if you said bring back season 3, all 100 coming back, I'm going for Fortune 500 right out the gate.
It's like I got a point to prove.
Yeah.
But the impetus, like that, got my SAT words, the impetus for Julian's demise actually started a few duels before, when the randomizer finally landed on Zack, who is the second person of this podcast to actually be randomized. So, Zack, how did you feel when it finally landed on you?
So my goal was to be randomized super early. That was my hope, right? Ultimately, I wanted to take airport codes because I wanted to, go up there, take out something I knew I could do. I worked for an airline for 6 years, so I was like, I got this one. I wanted to take out Laura, honestly, because I was like, she loves to travel, but I worked for an airline, so I was like, I got this one. Then Chef took airport codes. It's like, well, I'm not going that direction. So then at that point, it was just, I was hoping to wait out as long as I could. Then I took it and I was like, you know what? Megan hasn't said a word. Like I didn't even know what her voice sounded like. And I've been standing next to her for 4 previous episodes. And I'm like, this girl seems timid. Like I got this. Like, just, you kind of scope someone out, and then little did I know she's been scoping out everybody, planning an actual path and like sniping people.
Assassin. She is an assassin. And I think that was the biggest surprise of the night, is that we didn't know she had that dog in her until I'm watching the show. I'm like, oh my.
And on top of that, what really goes to show is her topic was Derby, right? I studied the wrong stuff. I was studying specific horses that had like won by record lengths. I'm up there reading about Secretariat and all these other different horses. I'm looking at like specific to the Kentucky Derby, and I got a picture of a bridge that was Louisville. I'm like, that's a bridge. I had deviled eggs, which was the first time a single person had to specify the type of egg. Like, they've had 5 different types of eggs, and an egg worked for them, but not for me. And I think I laughed at that point on stage.
You did.
And then Kentucky hot brown, that's not a real sandwich.
Oh man. Lillie, I guess I gotta ask you, when you see someone that you consider a friend leave, when you saw your cousin leave, because I know when I saw Zack left, I was like, I'm a little sad. And I don't know if Julian called you and said he felt a little sad, but when you see someone you actually like, I like that guy, and they go, how were your feelings about it?
Being that I had already been eliminated, I think my feelings were a bit different. If I had, still been there and, been left without him. But I knew that he wanted to get back home to his family too. So I was happy that he put his best foot forward, and I was happy that he was then able to go be with his family. Yeah,
that's fair.
So I know he did the best that he could.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I experienced something when I went up there. When you get randomized and you go up there, or if you're just called, did you have a thought running through your head, Lillie, of, oh my gosh, like these high fives, these hugs, like I'm saying goodbye potentially? Did that run through what was running through your brain as you're walking up there and high-fiving and hugging?
As I was walking up there, it was almost like a euphoric feeling, like I was floating. But once I got up there, and I don't know if anyone else experienced this, it was so quiet. Like it was like eerily quiet. Like you can't hear anyone cheering for you. So like as they were saying my name and all of that, it sounded like no one was cheering for me. And I was just like, oh crap, maybe they don't like me. But it's very quiet up there. You feel very just alone, just you, Rob, your opponent, in the screen.
It's funny that you say that because I remember going back to the after my duel in episode 3. I remember going back and saying I'm pretty sure that Devin said we see you Tear Bear or something like that up there. But I heard him in that minute before the 3, 2, 1. I heard him and it calmed me. And I went back and told those guys, I go, well, you don't really know like how good it is to know, like what you said, Lily, that people out there are on your side because you don't know. It's 50-50. Do they want you to stay? Do they want you to go? Do people like me? Don't they? But you don't know because it is quiet up there. And I think that's a great point of everybody feeling a little bit different. And I said, I remembered who my first picture was on my duel. And then when I watched it on TV, I didn't remember anyone after that. Like, I just remember when I went back, I'm like, oh. Like, I remember other duels watching from the floor, but mine, it was kind of like that out of body thing. And it's so weird. To speak on that. And then I'm also going to be on this podcast right here on this day. I'm going to call Devin a liar because Zack, he did miss you. He loved you. When you went home, he said, hey, T, where's that binder? Where's that binder? He was whispering to me. He said, he didn't say, oh my God, that's my friend going. He goes, where's his binder? Like I heard him whisper to no, I'm just giving you a hard time. But because when we got back there, the fact that it was still there was a cool move. I still have it and it's going to make an appearance here or Zack. The pages that are left, Devin and I went through that thing like pockets on a person who got left on the street. We went here and there, and I'm going for this and that. So I got some pages. I can mail that to you whenever you need. But it was tough, and I think like what Lily said is, she didn't have to see the family member go. She was there before, but the more and more you're going, and the people are leaving, and the longer you're there, the more relationships you're building, and it's a reality TV show within a game show. It really is that nobody at home can see. They see pictures. I can play this game. They don't understand the amount of strategy. And I think the fact that strategy switches so much is something that this game will only take on for those that play it. And I hope everyone gets to kind of experience that at some point. It's by far my favorite game show, not just because I was on it.
Yeah. Well, you heard it with when Hank got off and there's a comment like he was like my dad the whole time, the whole show, and someone was like how many days was that, like 3 or 4? And I was just like yes, but like you're on
it
for
sounds
like 12,
crazy, but it's
14
real
hours, like
yeah
every week you
because
get closer.
I used to think it was so wild, like when you watch reality shows and they're calling each other like best friend and saying, I feel like I've known you my whole life. And I'm like, how? Like you just met this person. But it really does happen.
And
To
bring up your point too, there's so many people I didn't get to talk to because either they didn't sit at the table or they're on the other side of the floor and that. But like Wyatt, quiet guy, like I'm sitting here watching the episode yesterday and sitting here watching it with my girlfriend and her family and stuff. And I'm like, that dude is so cool. Like you'll see him on TV doing this. And when he went up there and said, if anybody beat me in rodeo, I'd give him this belt buckle. That was classic, man. I was like, he goes, if anyone could beat me in my category, I'd give it to him. Like
I partied with that guy at the Exit Hotel. He's fun.
He seems like a fun time. And I was just thinking in general, because if you listen to episode 0, I told you how apprehensive I was about making friends with anybody because I was like, these are my competition. This is a business trip. Why would I make friends with anybody? But that's just not how humans work in general. And so it wasn't until maybe that day of shooting that episode with Zack that I actually started taking pictures. I wouldn't have that picture of me, you, Terry at all if I wasn't like, hey, let me actually chronicleize who I'm around to actually, and I would have missed that opportunity and just had a binder as a remnant and reminder of you. But thinking of Mr. Trees, today we gather to mourn the great and mighty Zack Trees, whose roots ran deep in this competition, but alas would not withstand the brutal storm of the floor. He came in standing tall, his branches stretched wide with confidence, but last night the axe finally fell. Though he has been mulched by the competition, his legacy will live on in the rings of history. His shade will be missed, his puns will be remembered, and his fall will serve as a reminder that no matter how tall you stand, the floor is always waiting to bring you down. Rest in peace, dear trees. May you leaf behind a legacy as strong as your bark.
You are getting so good at ChatGPT. I'm so proud of you. That was
I was going to
beautiful.
have a moment of silence, but you know Zach was not going to let a moment of silence go in there because we don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
beautiful.
So let's actually go
Made
to
me all sappy.
so Zach, were you surprised about Megan's run after you
So
left?
let me explain what happened. Like you leave, right? And I remember sitting there and then seeing Steve walk in, thinking like this guy has been like the cockiest of anyone. Like you knew he had collectibles. So he comes in the room. I'm like, you? He goes, me. Like just we sat down next to each other or whatever, and then Julian came in, and we're like, who is this girl? Like she just took out everybody. Like when is she gonna stop? We're like, she's gonna take the entire floor. Like what's going on?
She
It
had
was-
that. She had that agreement, that destruction agreement that you talked about before. She just didn't tell you guys.
Yeah.
She just didn't tell you guys about it. So,
She like I said, she never said a word before that. Standing next to her the entire show, and just
and that's another strategy. Like
Yeah.
Devin Chatterbox, we talked about that a little bit, but some of it was, he says it's not social game, but it is. You talk, you whisper, and another strategy might have been like Zach. You thought I haven't heard her talk. She seems timid. She seems like this, and she's just over there salivating. She got fangs. She's about to,
Yeah.
dig in to that tree.
She cooking.
So
She's cooking it.
I'm there walking around with my big binder, hoping
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh man,
All right.
this
Zach, so if you
intimidation
don't
factor.
go, you play it over again, and you're in the same thing. You go there, and you know now that Megan is a beast. Which one would you have picked instead?
Medical brands.
Okay.
It's like, yep. It's
Okay.
like-
No, that's just something. That's just something to think of. Like, hey, knowing then what I know now, I would have done this differently. So
I went into that day thinking if I was randomized, I was taking medical brands. That was like my goal. But then as I was called, I was looking around at the territories and I was like, if I move up, I felt like I was more in the thick of things.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right? Like the Met Gala area was larger, and I kind of wanted to stay out of it. And I was like, okay, like if I get randomized, I take one out, then I come back to the floor. I'm safe for a few more episodes. Still have trees. Let's see how it plays out. I would have loved to take on mythical creatures,
That was fun.
apart from the Smurf Gremlin thing at the end. But no, I randomly at the end, like you kind of see me talk about like what I want to do, and I didn't even mention medical brands. I was like, but we're off to the races. Like I just
Yeah. And
last minute call.
I remember that day. I don't think it was a last minute call because I think we kind of discussed it, talked about it, that it was a strong possibility of like, come on. Like, and I think the fact that she didn't talk, you were like, I think I'm gonna go for Derby, man. She's not talking over there, man. I'm
I
gonna
even
go for
remember
Derby.
you saying that, Zach. I remember you saying that.
I liked, like I was going either left or straight. Like
I don't
medical
remember
brands.
what you said, Zach. I was in my fourth helping of French fries back at the place with my bib on. Every meal we had fries. Like,
Potatoes, all the potatoes.
Devin,
they can do
where
with
we're
the
at,
supply.
yeah, where we're at in this episode. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not the middle, or the row
Not-
right next to us, to the right of us, where like, where languages is, where they haven't been touched once. There's still
No,
a divide.
no.
If we'd get a picture right now in this podcast and put it up after episode 5,
Make
I
me
think
do
they're-
work.
You've had like the four corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think
like
there's
that
a
very middle.
their very
Yeah.
middle had everyone still single. I think up until this point, except after this episode, the one in the very back,
Mhm.
because they did get to that That's where the basketball was and stuff like that.
Basketball.
College hoops, the very back 2 rows, like the front 8, it's like a wall there, and then you got these big ones. They got the big one coming up in the front over there by Safat, Matt Gala,
Yeah, Brian.
Brian's over here. I think Zach said earlier in Ocean, which is I think a body of water. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's wild because I'm looking at Zack get randomized. I looked at you get randomized. Lillie, I saw you had your battle. And when I got my number and realized I was smack in the middle of the floor, I just knew I was going to be in all the fun,
Yeah.
and to go through 5 episodes and like not even a possibility. And I got family members. It's a weird dynamic. Like when you gonna do it? How about you celebrate every week I survive
I know.
one more episode and said, yeah, I want to see you play though. I'm like, dog, I want to win money. That's what I want to do. I don't think our goals are aligned at all in this situation. You better let me say my quips about American Dolls coming up to bite someone in the butt again. That's what you need to worry about. Oh, but 5 minutes left. Rapid fire question. This is for Lillie and Zack. Who are your winners pick based on the information you have right now, and who are your dark horse players on the floor?
Ladies first.
You said who, Zach?
What?
Who did you say?
Oh, I said ladies first. Go. You're up.
Oh, ladies
You're
first.
up.
What category does Met Gala have now?
Yes, Latin musicians.
Musicians.
And if you don't remember, that was last week. Safat is her name.
She's a very strong competitor. So I would say she's someone to look out for.
Safat, I like it. Zack, I don't think we spoiled for you, have we? We haven't spoiled anything.
No.
All right, go ahead, Zack.
Yeah, I think that to discount Megan at this point, after she just torpedoed 3 in a row, 2 of them in their own categories, that'd be a mistake to count her out, because now she's got the time boost sitting there. She does have trees, though. You know,
she does have trees.
But I think Brian again has just proven to be a monster. Like he's been up there the most. He's gone against the most categories, had the most categories. He doesn't have directors anymore, so he's a little more approachable. But we've seen him do some crazy things. So I think, Megan is the dark horse. She literally.
Is that a derby? Is that a derby?
That is. And I think Brian, though, is still that front runner of he keeps winning $20,000. This guy could take $20,000 and the $250 and basically win all but a single $20,000.
Yeah. Do you think, and this goes for Zack and Lillie, do you think Brian's going to continue his dominance on the floor?
I think so.
What about you, Lillie?
I think it's coming to an end. All good things have to come to an end. I think it's coming to an end.
And so this is a question we could finally ask in the last seconds. Who do you think makes it farther, me or Terry?
Does road trips go farther than bodies of water?
The depths of the ocean to the edge of the road.
I think Terry does. I'm gonna go for bodies of water.
It's cool. It's cool.
I think Terry does.
And I'm the only one that actually hasn't played on this podcast yet. I am literally the only one that hasn't played. One
interesting dynamic, though, I want to bring up real quick before we cut to anything else is that the only thing Brian has to study is rodeo. He's not being randomized anytime soon, so he's got one thing to study.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else has to worry about,
But
the gambit.
But he gets the next person that wants to knock him off in duels rodeo, and if he beats them, he has one thing to study, but he has 16 things that could come at him.
Yeah,
that's the part that people don't see. He could be studying 16 things. So it's how you want to do it. I know we got almost out of time here, but one thing that maybe we'll get into next week, we've talked about it somewhere else, is getting people to stay up there is a thing with the floor. They didn't like them always coming back. Something we'll touch on at a later time is money per duel. I've heard people talking about $1,000 per duel.
Yeah,
You
I've seen
win a
that on
duel, you get
Reddit.
$1,000. Something interesting for us to maybe tap back
Yeah.
into. But
Maybe they'll do
Yeah.
that for the All-Star season.
yeah,
How do we convince them to stay? All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Low Down. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
go ahead and drop us a like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and we want to hear your thoughts.
And sending your questions at the Low Down on the floor. That's Low Down with the E at gmail.com. And you might hear them on the next episode of the
Floor.
Low Down.
Low
We're
Down
gonna-
on the floor. No, you messed it up.
The lowdown of the floor. And Devin, I expect you to be here next week. And if you're not, then we'll know something happened.
I'm on
That's right.
spring break.
All right. He's on spring break. Zach, you and I are at the helm next week. We're gonna figure this out.
We got it.
Yep. He's going on a road trip.
And thank you so much, Lillie. Once again, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank
See
you
you
so
guys
much.
next week.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you guys again.